Imagine a club of nations, some of the world's largest and fastest-growing economies, coming together to challenge the status quo. This group is called BRICS: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Together, they represent over 40% of the world's population and more than a quarter of global GDP. Spread across 3 continents, BRICS is united by a vision to create a more balanced, multipolar world where their voices matter. The term BRIC was coined in 2001 by a Goldman Sachs economist, recognizing the potential of these emerging markets. South Africa joined in 2010, adding an African perspective. BRICS has evolved from an economic idea into a formal political and diplomatic platform. Its leaders meet annually to discuss trade, finance, security, and development. Their goal to cooperate and create alternatives to Western-dominated global institutions. BRICS countries are challenging the old rules, written by the US and its allies after World War II. They argue the current system no longer reflects today's realities. To change this, they're building new structures, like the New Development Bank, to finance their own projects. At its core, BRICS symbolizes a major global power shift, the rise of the West against the long-standing dominance of the West. This shift is driven by economics. Money is power, and how it flows shapes influence. One key area where BRICS is pushing for change is the global energy market. They're questioning how oil, the world's most important commodity, is traded. The BRICS story is about more than just economics. It's about rewriting the rules of global power. As their economies grow, so does their desire for a greater say in world affairs. Their influence is expanding, and so is their ambition. The world is watching as BRICS seeks to transform the global order. Their actions could reshape the future of international trade and finance. The next chapters in their story could redefine who holds power in the 21st century. The question is, will they succeed in building a new system, or will the old order hold firm? To grasp the changes in world trade, we need to understand the Chinese yuan. The yuan, or renminbi, is China's official currency, once used mainly within China, tightly controlled by the government. As China's economy soared, Beijing saw the benefits of making the yuan a global currency. A global currency is like a common language for international business. Until now, that's been the US dollar. China wants the yuan to join that club. To get there, China relaxed some controls, allowing the yuan to be traded in places like Hong Kong, and signed currency swap deals with other countries. In 2016, the IMF added the yuan to its special drawing rights basket, recognizing it as a major world currency. Now, central banks are starting to hold yuan in their reserves. China is the world's largest trading nation and biggest oil importer, so it makes sense to use its own currency for trade. This isn't just about convenience, it's a strategic move to boost China's global influence and shield its economy from US decisions. The yuan's journey to global status is far from over, but its momentum is undeniable. As China's trade grows, so does the yuan's reach. The world is watching to see if the yuan can truly rival the dollar. The stakes are high for China and for the global financial system. For 50 years, oil has been traded almost exclusively in US dollars, a system called the Petrodollar. This began in the 1970s when the US and Saudi Arabia struck a deal, US protection in exchange for oil priced in dollars. Soon, all OPEC countries followed, making the dollar the world's primary reserve currency. This created constant demand for dollars, giving the US economic advantages and global influence. Countries needed dollars to buy oil, so they held large reserves and traded with the US. The US could borrow cheaply and run large deficits, an exorbitant privilege. The dollar's dominance also gave Washington powerful leverage. It could impose sanctions and cut off countries from the global financial system. For nations at odds with US policy, this dependence is a vulnerability. The petrodollar system ties global stability to the US economy and decisions. As a result, many countries are seeking alternatives. The question is, can the world move beyond the dollar? The answer could reshape global power. BRICS, especially China and Russia, see the petrodollar as a strategic liability. Their push to use the yuan for oil trade is a direct challenge to US dominance. For China, the world's top oil importer, paying in dollars means holding huge reserves and being exposed to US policy shifts. By settling oil in yuan, China reduces risk and boosts its currency's global role. Russia, hit by Western sanctions, turned to China. Now, much of their oil trade is settled in Yuan. This partnership lets Russia bypass sanctions and keeps its economy afloat. Other BRICS members are joining in. Brazil and China trade in local currencies, and India is exploring non-dollar payment options for Russian oil. Even Saudi Arabia is considering pricing some oil sales to China in Yuan. The trend is clear. Major economies want more control and less dependence on the dollar. This isn't just about currency, it's about sovereignty and security. The shift is gaining momentum, and the world is taking notice. The petrodollar's grip is loosening, deal by deal. The future of global trade may look very different. De-dollarization, reducing reliance on the US dollar, is now a central goal for BRICS. First, it's about reducing vulnerability. When the world depends on one currency, instability in the US can trigger global crises. Second, the US uses the dollar as a foreign policy tool, imposing sanctions and blocking access to the financial system. For BRICS, this is an unacceptable risk. Trading in local currencies, or the yuan, simplifies transactions, cuts costs, and avoids dollar-related risks. The new development bank is lending in local currencies, and BRICS is exploring a new reserve currency. These steps help members finance projects without dollar exposure. The aim: a multipolar financial world, free from any single nation's dominance. The process is gradual, but the intent is serious. The global financial landscape is shifting, one transaction at a time. The era of dollar supremacy is being quietly challenged. The yuan's role in oil trade is no longer just theory, it's happening now. Russia and China have shifted much of their energy trade to yuan payments since 2022. This benefits both. Russia gets revenue despite sanctions, and China secures energy while boosting its currency. China's Shanghai International Energy Exchange launched yuan-priced oil futures, letting producers sell oil to China and get paid in yuan. The yuan is even convertible to gold, adding security for sellers. In 2023, China bought LNG from the UAE, settled in yuan, not dollars. This deal involved a Chinese company, a Gulf producer, and a European energy giant, all bypassing the dollar. Other countries, like Pakistan, are following suit. Each yuan-based deal chips away at the petrodollar's dominance. The network effect is growing. As more nations use the yuan, it becomes easier for others to join. The shift is gradual, but the cracks in the old system are widening. The de-dollarization of energy markets is underway. The world is watching and adapting. The move to settle oil in yuan is sending shockwaves through global trade. If oil, the world's most traded commodity, shifts away from the dollar, demand for dollars will fall. Countries will diversify reserves, weakening the dollar's value and influence. Trade routes and alliances may shift, drawing nations closer to China's economic orbit. China's Belt and Road Initiative, funded and repaid in yuan, could create a new economic bloc. For the US, this means higher import costs and more expensive government borrowing. US sanctions would lose some bite if countries have alternatives to the dollar. Still, the dollar's incumbency and deep financial markets give it staying power. The yuan faces hurdles, capital controls, and transparency concerns. The likely outcome? A gradual move to a multi-currency world, not a sudden dollar collapse. The balance of power in global finance is shifting. The future will be more complex and more competitive. These shifts in global finance have real effects on ordinary people. In the US, a weaker dollar could mean higher prices for imports. Your money won't stretch as far, but US-made goods could become more competitive, boosting manufacturing jobs. In BRICS and emerging economies, trading in local currencies or yuan can stabilize prices and reduce vulnerability to US policy. Small businesses benefit from lower transaction costs and fewer currency conversions. The global balance of power may become more even, but also more unpredictable. Sanctions could lose impact, changing how international disputes are handled. Ultimately, the currency used for trade affects everything from gas prices to job opportunities. The world is entering a new era, one that will be felt in everyday life. The outcome depends on how nations adapt to this changing landscape. The BRICS push for the yuan is about more than finance, it's about global power. For centuries, dominant currencies have meant dominant nations. The challenge to the dollar signals a new chapter in world affairs. BRICS, led by China and Russia, wants a financial system that's more democratic and reflects today's realities. By promoting the Yuan, they're building a multipolar world where no single nation dictates the rules. The petrodollar's dominance is being chipped away, deal by deal. Even US allies are hedging their bets, sensing change. The rise of BRICS and the Yuan is a quiet revolution, fought with currency, not armies. The outcome will shape global power for generations. The era of a single currency world may be ending, and a new order is emerging.